everybody. It's been my honor to be this town's Poet Laureate for 3 years. And I just want to share an anecdote that took place yesterday at Flanders Nature Center in connection with poetry in Woodbury. One of the offshoot projects we had was a very slim collection called Instances of Seeing, which was an ekphrastic collection based on the art show at Flanders last year. It was a tough time. I had a concussion. We had only a handful of poets. We got through it. We created a little book. And then I reached out to Michael Audette at Flanders and said, want to do it again? And he said, sure. And we had 16 poets from around the state there. At the reception on last 2 Fridays ago, and then Saturday morning writing about the poetry and writing about the art, and it was really wonderful. If you haven't been to Flanders lately, it's absolutely made over inside. The walls are bright white. Installation like this for hanging the artwork, and it was just stunning and magical. And we have 18 artists represented in the upcoming collection and 18 poets. So it's a stunning collection. But when I went to Flanders yesterday on my day off to go for a little walk, I just checked my email real quick, because compulsive, right? And Michael had sent me an email. I'm at Flanders if you want to talk about instances. So I went in the office before I went for a walk, and he had spent the morning giving back people their art who had it as part of the exhibit, and he was reading them their poems. He had sent him a copy of the book to proof and look at and the rest of it, and he was reading them their poems. When I stopped by, he asked me to read the poems that were in the book that I didn't write to the artists who were there to get their work. And it was a stunning, stunning and wonderful moment. I thought, wow, this world is on fire. I am a doom scroller. I'm checking the news all the time. And everything's on fire, you know? And there we are in Woodbury reading poetry to painters, you know, and photographers. And it was just magical. And I think we could take the show on the road and maybe solve some political problems around the world through poetry and art. But it was an amazing moment, and it happened because we had an idea that worked here with the ekphrastic collection, because Marla recommended we do something, we did something. We were so successful with the quantity of material that we had for that first book, we couldn't afford to print it. So I figured out how to do that in-house so that we could make an attractive, quality, affordable collection for the community. And the template worked, so away we went. And that wouldn't have happened if this hadn't happened. And I'm not sure I would have had the courage to even think it up if this hadn't happened, if this library where our daughter grew up didn't offer that opportunity to me. So I'm grateful to Woodbury and the library for that, and for the library's continued patience with their Poet Laureate. I would appreciate that too. And another opportunity came up recently, also in connection with Flanders. And one afternoon I got an email from Jeanette. Proposal, it said in the subject line. Well, I had opened that one, right? What is up? And it was that Flanders was dedicating one of its trails, the Geology Trail, in honor of Kamsi Anna Seaman Thicket, who had died a couple years ago of a heart attack. And this was what the family wanted to do to honor her memory. And also, they're converting their land on North Main Street into an art and poetry nature trail. So would I be willing to write some poems? And I didn't know the family. I never met Kamsi, but I know Flanders, and I took a walk and I wrote a poem for them and got to know this incredible family who has channeled their grief into a forest gallery of art. And I have the invitation here that I'll leave out if people want to go see this. It's open to the public and it's stunning. But that's what happens when you live in a community where people are open to ideas and are willing to trust each other to test their ideas. And I think that just struck me as so important. And when Ed and I were driving in tonight, I was thinking about the open mics that we've had here, and it built slowly, but it built. And part of how it built, I think, is because we had themes, so that we didn't have to just, get the poetry readings that you don't know whether you should clap or call the hotline kind of thing. and so, but the first theme was baseball. I said, how about baseball and poetry? And he's like, But we did it, and it was so much fun. And as we were leaving, one of the guests there, he's in a number 55 or whatever league, and he was in uniform, and he said, "When was the last time you left a poetry reading and people were smiling?" And that's what the theme kind of help us do, is go beyond ourselves, and these are projects do that. But there have been other times that a school out in southeastern Connecticut drove their students here to give them the opportunity to be at an open mic. Drove across the state to be at Woodbury Public Library to create an audience for their children. And our September open mic, a woman drove 90 minutes to be here to read a spoken word poem. And it was about her illness and how she's perceived or believes she's perceived. And it was such a moment to be here with our usual crew and then some. Just, you could feel this hug in this room for this young woman who found the courage to be here. And I think, when I think about public libraries in this space and what we mean when we're being creative, it's about those relationships. Scott asked me recently what's been the best thing about being Poet Laureate, and I told him it's the people. It's the relationships that unfold. And we have a monthly, the Oron Poetry Group. Now we meet in the comfort of St. Paul's Church across the street, thanks to Betty Lou Bowles and her good offices getting the church to support this. But we meet on the third Saturday of every month, about 9:15, when people kind of drift in. Not everybody's a high school English teacher up at 4, you know. And it's a very casual, supportive, kind group of people who care about poetry and care about sharing ideas, which is ultimately what it really comes down to, being human through language, right? And that was really poetry, right? It was the first stories, the first way we communicated news. The first music, it was poetry, and the music that is inherent in language when we give it a chance. And that is the joy of being Poet Laureate, and being Poet Laureate in Woodbury particularly. And it's exciting to look at. After Katie's next. So anything we can put back, yep, Katie, we're there. And I'm probably going on too long, but I would just like to share a couple poems if that's okay. And funny enough, this one's called The Bouquets at Your Feet. It's about rug hooking. My great-grandmother was a rug hooker. She did it from the feed bags, designed them and the whole thing. And The Bouquets at Your Feet. Oh, there's a Woodbury connection because my great-grandfather was born in town. And the child's homemade A-line white woolen dress, picked apart at the pinked seams, rolled like a bandage and stored among like scraps of cast-off woolen attire, full yet with enough life to be put to a new purpose. A half century and more after the picking apart awaits the wheel of the fabric cutter and transformation into a new form, to become part of my great-grandmother's hand-hooked rugs, a century old, now in need of repair. Their feed-bag burlap bases come undone with time and the press of family, coming and going. The gathered bouquets of roses, petunias, dahlias, morning glories, in vivid fields framed by cooling fern scrolls, designed in the mind of a mother who bore the weight of the world, nursing her family through the Great War, the Spanish flu, the Great Depression, who bore the weight of the world when one son did not return from the Second World War, who bore the weight of the world as silence when 2 sons did return, who bore the weight of the world in decades of opening the door to whoever needed to come home. These rugs have been touched thousands of times by family. Like Penelope, patiently, powerfully taking her time bringing the threads together, she told the old story in the fabric of the new story she created, from every little bit of every lived moment. Years later, my grandmother, her daughter, would tell me to fix the damaged rugs. Here's how I did it, Gram said, a cigarette dangling from her lips months before she died of cancer. The hook in one hand, a strip of wool in the other. As she looped the wool through the burlap patches, she stitched to the back of her mother's work. You can do it, she said. Practice. Here I am now, 40 years from Graham's initial directive, about to recreate the woolen bouquets that said then and say now, come in. This is your home. Be loved. I just would like to share one poem that I wrote about the Siemens property on North Main Street. You gotta go there, you gotta see this. It's a treat. It's called Walking, inspired by the beautiful trails at Firefly Hill Farm, Woodbury, Connecticut. What could be more intimate than walking? You are as you are, who you are, simply. You have your place, a part of the landscape that, like you, descended from miracles. You breathe in time with the earth's deep breath, equally alive under your soft step. Simple lives digest rocks and fallen plants. They make a home for the overstory, sheltering you from the sun, and the understory, promising you that all life has its turn, that all life is ephemeral, yours too, and as vital as the bloodroot and aster. Come here knowing the birds, the bears, your family watch and accept you. Come, dear one, and see. Thank you.